We're starting with Formula One, Shane, and I wonder, like, are you feeling a little bit like get off the bandwagon, everybody, after Drive to Survive? Like, I presume there's been this massive wave of interest in the new season.
I cannot say that because my interest in Formula One was definitely revived by season 1 of Drive to Survive. So I'm one of those bandwagoners.
All right.
So for all of the petrol heads out there, I do apologise, but I'm one of those people. I'm sad to say, but when it was lights out at Bahrain on Sunday afternoon, my God, I was excited. I was excited because to have sport back in this sense, and Formula One has actually done quite well throughout COVID, but what a race we had, and it certainly didn't disappoint. You had Lewis Hamilton against Max Verstappen, the battle we all hoped we would have, and perhaps not the outcome we thought we would have this weekend, but loads of other storylines from it as well. So they were the front two. Valtteri Bottas, who ended up having the fastest lap, Hamilton's Mercedes teammate, finished third ahead of Lando Norris. And Sergio Perez, Checo Perez, the Red Bull driver, an extraordinary drive, probably the driver of the day, in 5th, started on 11th in the grid. So really interesting storylines. I probably wanted to start with Mercedes, the machine that is Mercedes, and Lewis Hamilton starting as he means to go on, because really throughout the weekend, and you'll see the tweet up on your screen there that he put out, I love the challenge, I love this sport, what a way to start the season. Today is a reminder that through harnessing and channeling our collective power, we can accomplish great things. It's great to be back. Lewis Hamilton is like Marmite. Some people read that line, today is a reminder that through harnessing and channeling our collective power, we can accomplish great things. Some people read that and think, what an inspirational guy. What a man. And some people will think, just shut up, Lewis, and stop talking. This is the guy that, drives around behind the scenes at the Formula One tracks on his scooter. And he is a character, and certainly a Marmite character. People love him or hate him. But you cannot take away the fact that this guy is an extraordinary driver. Mercedes struggled in practice and qualifying. It trailed Red Bull all weekend, but they did it when it mattered on race day. And Hamilton looking to make history this year with an 8th Formula One World Championship driver's title to overtake the great Michael Schumacher. He could look on course to do it if he can get a win at the weekend. Everyone thought this was Red Bull's race to lose, the way Max Verstappen looked in qualifying. So the 95th Grand Prix win of Lewis Hamilton's career. He leads in laps led, in pole positions. He's the king of qualifying. And it's actually the first time he's won an opening race in the calendar since 2015. He's still dominated in the years since. But Mercedes are just a powerhouse, Owen. And anyone who has seen Drive to Survive will know their team principal, Toto Wolff. At the start of season 2, he says, Formula One is like, and by the way, he sounds like Arnold Schwarzenegger from his absolute classic films. So he says, Formula One is like war planning, set our targets, develop the power unit, and deploy it on the field. And then he says in a later episode, let's crush them, about the opposition. So Mercedes are terrifying, absolutely terrifying. They had this controversy that was covered at the start of season 3 of Drive to Survive last season. They used this DAS system, dual axis steering, which was a steering system that essentially pushes in and out. And you can see in the videos at the start of last season, Hamilton and Bottas slowly just pushing the steering wheel in and pulling it out. It gives them more grip on the bends and more speed going through corners. And Red Bull and Christian Horner appealed it. But it just goes to show that Mercedes get the little things right. And look, granted, they have a lot of money at their disposal, but they are the powerhouse. And certainly Lewis Hamilton starting as he means to go on at Bahrain at the weekend.
For Verstappen, Hamilton, is this like a beef of the present? Is it something to watch out for, or is it going to be Hamilton all the way?
I think Verstappen, and that's certainly the next talking point we should get into, because Max Verstappen, he's a future world champion, and I don't say future in a condescending way that in 6-7 years he might win a world title. If he doesn't win this season, I think he'll win the world championship next season. He's 23 years old. He's 13 years younger than Lewis Hamilton, but at the same time he feels like he's been around forever. He's been racing in Formula One level since he was 18. Youngest driver ever to start a race, youngest driver to win a race, to secure points, secure a podium, to set a fastest lap. But it still feels, some people have written this week that we're waiting for his coming-of-age season. There's a great photo there on the screen of him pranking David Coulthard for his birthday at the weekend. Formula One drivers are just gas crack, as you can see on screen. a lovely cake in the face of David Coulthard there. But a great piece from Pete Harland in the Eurosport this week, talking about that Lewis Hamilton versus Max Verstappen rivalry that you mentioned, Owen. And he says, in the past, Verstappen and the Red Bull organisation as a whole seemed to love playing up to the underdog mentality, very often going into a mood that was equal parts scrappy-doo mixed with sullen teenager. At times it was charming and somewhat refreshing, but by the end it had become slightly irksome. this new, more level-headed outfit is just what Formula One needed. And there's certainly an element of level-headedness about Max Verstappen this season that we haven't seen. Like he overtook Lewis Hamilton late on in Bahrain at the weekend, but it was deemed an illegal overtake, so he went off the track to do it. So we had to give Lewis Hamilton his position back and basically let him pass again, which was an order that came from on high. And Anthony Davidson on Sky Sports F1 at the weekend said the old Verstappen wouldn't have done what he did. This is a new Max that we're seeing, very mature, a great racer like we know, and he's super quick. That was, as he said, poignant for the rest of the championship, that Max Verstappen has been known as a bit of a hot-headed young kid over the years, but certainly there's a scary, steely determination about him this season. And the bad boy come good, you would have to say, about Max Verstappen. So certainly a world champion, if not this season, I would say next season.
Right, so he's ready to win pretty soon. What about some of the younger kids, Shane, that are making waves? Like, is it going to be really competitive once Hamilton steps away and Verstappen's got a lot to look at when he turns over his shoulder?
Yeah, like there are young kids coming through, and like the average age of the Formula One drivers, the 20 drivers, seems to come down every single year, which is terrifying. And two of the ones I wanted to focus on this week were Mick Schumacher and Yuki Tsunoda, that had their Formula One debuts at the weekend. And Mick Schumacher, his name will absolutely be familiar to everyone involved in sport, but he spun his Haas car at turn 4 at Bahrain at the weekend, but he still continued, and still a more successful Formula One debut than his dad. His dad actually failed to complete his maiden lap failed to complete a lap in his maiden race. That was the 1981 Belgian Grand Prix. So certainly a talent that we've seen coming over the recent years, Mick Schumacher, and he's one of these people that, he won the Formula 2 series last year, offered the chance then to step up to Formula 1, that the rules prevent the Formula 2 champion staying in Formula 2. So Haas are customers of Ferrari, hence it makes sense for them to take their best rookie. So he was actually skiing with his father Michael when Michael Schumacher suffered those severe head injuries in December 2013. And he's since explained that his dad was his idol and role model, but gives nothing away about his medical condition, and that's been a veil of secrecy over Michael Schumacher's condition over recent years, as we all know. There's a lovely clip I want to play you here as well. It's Michael Schumacher and Mick Schumacher. Mick is just 1 year old at this point, and perhaps his first time in a car with Michael. Yeah, lovely pictures of Mick Schumacher and Michael Schumacher when he was a kid. Yuki Tsunoda was the other one I mentioned. He's a breath of fresh air. He's the 65th driver to score points on his debut. Came ninth in Bahrain at the weekend on his Formula One bow. So the first Japanese driver as well to register points since the 2012 Brazilian Grand Prix. So certainly going to do big things for the sport over there. And he's really a breath of fresh air. He spoke afterwards about, you can see the photo that was on screen there of him in front of Fernando Alonso's car as a kid. And he said he goes from standing next to Fernando Alonso's car to overtaking it at the weekend. So really an extraordinary rise from Yuki Tsunoda. Started 13th, dropped to 15th on the first lap, came up to 9th. So really, really impressive showing from both of those really on their opening weekend.
That's the depressing thing about the advancement of technology, is that all the kids who are breaking through and are way more successful than any of us at their age have got pictures of them beside heroes of our childhood, or people that we remember from our childhood, and it's like, Jesus. What's the main reason for the average age declining every year? Is there a theory for that? Guys being given chances earlier. Right.
Some of the smaller teams are taking these people on, and there's money involved too. Like Nikita Mazepin, Schumacher's Haas teammate, he's in there because of his father is a Russian billionaire involved in the chemical industry. And there are others too. Lance Stroll is a Canadian, son of a Canadian billionaire who owns his team. So there's a lot of money involved, and right. Some of these came from privileged backgrounds. So some of them just get the opportunity that way. Mick Schumacher, you'd have to say, his name certainly got him in there, but he's a talent as well. So a lot of them in there on merit, but some of them in there on money. but there's a lot of young guys involved in the midfield too, and I guess that's one of the topics I wanted to touch on as well. This battle of the midfield, and I don't mean Jason Malumbi and Josh Cullen, but the teams in the middle of the grouping, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth kind of positioning teams: AlphaTauri, McLaren, Ferrari, Aston Martin, and Alpine. Alpine were, of course, Renault last year, but I just wanted to focus on one guy who I am actually in love with, and I've professed my love for him before. It's the Australian driver for McLaren, Daniel Ricciardo. There's a great word used in Oz. You'll see him performing a shoey there. That's what Daniel Ricciardo calls a shoey. So he celebrates by pouring.
I can see why he calls it a shoey. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you can see exactly why he calls it a shoey, mate. He basically he throws, I assume, champagne into his boot after he wins or finishes on a podium. He was actually asked about it one time, and he says, if the sparkling wine is cold, then it tastes good. Normally on the podium it's cold, so you don't get all the flavors. But if it's warm, then you get the sweat and all that through it. But the cold taste kills the bad stuff. But he's an extraordinary character. And there is a word used in Australia. It's a noun called larrikin. I think it's probably scallywag in our lingo. But larrikin means a mischievous young person, an uncultivated, rowdy but good-hearted person, or a person who acts with apparent disregard for social or political conventions. Daniel Ricciardo is the absolute definition of that. He is one of these guys in the midfield. Some of his best quotes: after he won the Chinese Grand Prix in 2018, he overtook Valtteri Bottas, and he is renowned as one of the best overtakers in the game. He said, sometimes you've just got to lick the stamp and send it. Leinster kind of rugby Hugo vibes off that phrase, for sure. And he even, he does good accents as well. During the US Grand Prix at the Circuit of Americas in Austin in 2016, he was asked if he would support Trump or Hillary Clinton in the US election, even though he's an Australian citizen. He put on his best Texas accent impression and said, I should probably try the accent to give this its full worth, but please, sir, don't throw that catastrophe upon me. I'm standing here as a neutral. I just want what's best for the great city of Texas and the great country of America. This is Daniel Ricciardo, Owen. This guy is an absolute character and someone who I will follow throughout this year for McLaren. So the battle of the midfield, certainly one of the talking points this season.